Hi there. Glad to have you with us here today as we talk about the top 50 modern actors of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. We've got two previous episodes already. This is our list from 30 to 21. Check these out.
Hi there, welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and other things. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thank you for being with us today as we reveal some amazing actors who have inspired us, entertained us, and impacted the genres of fantasy, science fiction, and horror. You got to go find the other two episodes where we talked about 50 to 41 and 40 to 31 to see who you've missed already. But we've got even better actors to bring you today, at least better according to our criteria of the impact they've had and how great those performances were, as well as a little thought to how many things they've done in these genres. We hope you'll enjoy today's episode and give us a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And check out in the show notes all the other ways you can interact with Zach and I, because, we have a Twitter presence, Twitter presence. We've got a Discord that you can come chat with us. There's an invite there. Check it out. And we even have email. We love to hear from people. Tell us what you think. And don't forget the comment box, the easiest way to tell us what you think. So let's get to the next part of our list. We're working our way up. So we start with number 30 today.
Okay.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Okay.
I struggled a little where to put her on. She's so good. Such a great actor and so many different roles she's done. Everything from Frankenstein in 1994, an adaptation of that. She was on one of your favorite shows, Merlin, as Morgan Le Fay. Great performance there. The Harry Potter series introduced her to most of our viewers when she came in with Bellatrix Lestrange. Such a dark, evil character. We could go off on her, but she performs it so well. She co-stars with Johnny Depp and Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, kind of a horror musical that worked. It was delightful. The Red Queen and Alice in Wonderland. Again, she's in one of Tim Burton's roles there. Tim Burton really digs her because then she was in Dark Shadows as well, which is kind of a horror comedy. A lot of the different things she's done, though. We mentioned in a previous episode the show Enola Holmes, and she has a role on that. She's got her feet dipped into a lot of things. She's been in fantasy. She's been in horror. She's not really a sci-fi person. No, nothing honestly, on the list was truly science fiction.
She belongs somewhere in the middle of this list.
I should have mentioned Big Fish. She's got a role in that, and that's a huge, successful film. Go on.
She belongs somewhere in this list, somewhere in the middle here, because she's one of Tim Burton's favorites. Plus, she's done a couple of other things and been successful in them. When she's in all of Tim Burton's things, and is usually one of, if not the best part of all of Tim Burton's things, yeah, it does something for a genre.
And having a prominent role in the Harry Potter series. Yeah. I mean, that was such a phenomenon at its time.
Absolutely a household name for any of these genres, really. And so at that point, she gets to be on the list.
There we go. Good place to start, but who do we have that's better? Well, number 29 is another one where I struggled where to put him exactly. He's an actor I love seeing in whatever he's in, Samuel L. Jackson. And he's got a massive body of work in these genres. Starting with a role, it's a smaller role in Jurassic Park, but it's a good role. But then he enters the Star Wars universe in the prequel trilogy. His Mace Windu was well done. The Unbreakable series, he's in all three of those films as Mr. Glass. Snakes on a Plane, which is just a hilarious action horror film and meme worthy. There are quotes from that movie that have entered cult status. He does enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Nick Fury, which was part of what really is impressive about him, because he doesn't look anything like the Nick Fury in the comics, and yet he owns the role of Nick Fury. So he had to overcome that. That's not the Nick Fury in the comics at all. And yet now it totally is. Well done, Samuel L. Jackson. He's got a number of other things that he's just bopped in. In doing my research, I found one I got to go back and watch. Cell. It's an adaptation of a Stephen King book that I enjoyed. I
Mm-hmm.
understand the movie didn't do so well, but he's like the main character in Cell. So I got to go watch that movie now, because even if it's not good, I'll still enjoy it. He did have a key role in Kong Skull Island that was pretty good, and I did watch that movie. And then again, just kind of reviewing all the things these people do, I was reminded that he's the voice of Frozone from Incredibles. So he's got a lot of stuff here. And there's
Yet,
more. I didn't mention it all.
no, I was at a point here now just looking through the things here, and I'm like, there are some things that are coming to mind where he plays a significant role, and it's not even on here. You have 17 different things listed under Samuel L. Jackson, and I easily came up with ones that you didn't list but absolutely fit.
Like
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, where he plays the main villain.
Okay.
And that's very clearly a fantasy movie.
Yeah. There's more. He has a role in Spiral from the Book of Saw, which is part of the Saw franchise. So now he's coming in strong in the horror element too. There's so much. And then again, he's one of those characters who's had big things in other genres. I mean, Pulp Fiction, one of the biggest movies of all time. And he's a key player in that one. Yeah.
At the end of the day,
you see why I was not sure where to put him exactly.
At the end of the day, he belongs on this list, and he's a big name that belongs on probably most lists.
It elevates the franchise, elevates these genres. Okay, number 28 is one where I'm like, maybe I should have even made him lower.
Maybe.
But Elijah Wood. Okay, he's, best known across genres because of his performance as Frodo in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But many of us loved him already in Deep Impact before that. That was 1988.
I saw Deep Impact after I'd seen The Lord of the Rings, but I did like him in it.
Now, also in 1998, there's a fun horror movie that he stars in, The Faculty. He's got a number of other prominent actors in that movie with him. He was just a teenager back then. Or maybe he was like 20 playing a teenager. You know how they do that. But I enjoyed The Faculty. That's not that great a movie, and yet it's very entertaining. Sin City, he gives us a very different kind of performance as he plays basically a serial killer. And he's just dark, and he does have acting ability, and he's been really spreading out in the kind of roles he chooses. Maniac in 2012 is a horror thriller. It's a remake of a really gross, bad horror movie. I've seen the original Maniac. The premise is psychologically disturbing and dark, and it's almost kind of giallo themed with the kind of blood and gore that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So they remade it a little more tastefully, and he puts in a very disturbing performance as the killer, Frank Zito.
I want to give a little shout out to something he's done, mostly because I think Rach would be mad at me if I didn't, because it's not something that you're aware of probably. Over the Garden Wall, he lends his voice to one of the main characters, and it's a cute little fantasy, a little bit horror-ish. It's definitely a Halloween time movie / miniseries. And it just adds to another realm of he does some voice work for some things here and there that lends a different portion to his work.
Now, part of putting these lists together is I try to really get deep into all the different roles they've done. And, I'm finding movies I hadn't even known were there yet. So there is one on this list for Elijah Wood I got to go back and watch now. Cooties from 2014, where he plays a substitute teacher dealing with a zombie outbreak caused by infected chicken nuggets in an elementary school. It's a comedy horror. And I'm just like, that is so ridiculous. I got to go see that movie.
Sounds up your alley.
All right. So that was 28. 27, Jason Momoa. Okay. Now, here we've got a guy who's just living in this genre in fantasy and science fiction and is doing so much now. I first got introduced to him in Stargate Atlantis. I was a big fan of the Stargate franchise, so here we got this spin-off series and Ronan Dex, this Jason Momoa guy, and I'm like, whoa, I like him. And then he gets a Conan the Barbarian spinoff that he does, a redo that he did all right. It's not that great a film, but he was solid. But then goes right into Game of Thrones, where he plays a similar type with Khal Drogo. But okay, he's got the muscles, he can play the barbarian, but he's also doing other nuanced kinds of films. And one of his more nuanced roles is actually Aquaman. What he's done in the DC universe. He's not just been the Aquaman from the comics, which is kind of a lame character. He's added depth and interest to how he's performed this role.
He made Aquaman better and cooler.
He is the only other DC character who's going to appear on the list. So, as Gal Gadot in a previous episode brought Wonder Woman to life, he has made Aquaman something cool and interesting and really quite good.
So sorry to any Witcher Superman fans out there. My dad just told you Henry Cavill does not make his list.
Whoops. Jason Momoa has some other things that are pretty prominent in here. Obviously, he's got a key role. It's short but significant in Dune. He's got a Apple TV series, C, which I've just seen a few episodes of. They were good, and then it fell off my radar because I just got too busy. I need to go back and watch all of that. He also does a turn in the Fast and Furious franchise, because who doesn't these days, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's fair to say that we are both Jason Momoa fans. Would other people put him lower? Probably, but we like Jason Momoa.
If he's done something outside of fantasy and science fiction, I'm not familiar with it at all. But he's so good in these genres. So that's our 27. 26 is someone that you thought originally I had too high, so I did lower him a little bit. I'm talking Benedict Cumberbatch. He's got quite a few things, quite a few credits here. He's done plenty of other things outside of these genres too, so it's solid to have him midway here. Of course, I first came upon him in Sherlock, the TV series, that he's did a nice performance as Sherlock Holmes, gave us something interesting. He's also the voice of Smaug, so we get him into the Hobbit. Then and that trilogy again that I'm not in love with, but he's a great voice for Smaug. The Star Trek universe he gets into because he brings in the new rebooted version of Star Trek. He plays Khan. Very nicely done. Then we jump him into the MCU because he brought Doctor Strange to life. Really great performance as Doctor Strange. I mean, that's, again, one of these people who steps into a role and becomes it fully. So we've got all his appearances as Doctor Strange. He's another one that was in Good Omens. He's just a voice.
He's barely in Good Omens.
That's kind of what I have for him. So, we've got him as Doctor Strange. We've got him as a few other key roles in different franchises. He's really scattered himself around quite a bit.
He's got some key roles in places. I still think he deserves to be lower in this list.
Okay. All right. So that's what the comment box is for, people. If you agree or disagree, let us know. What's your take on Benedict Cumberbatch? Number 25 is one I struggled, again, exactly where to put her. Zoe Saldana. She's part of so many different franchises, though, that are all really prominent in here, and I'm entertained in every one of them.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing that she was actually in the fantasy and sci-fi horror genre is one people won't necessarily remember. She was in Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Yeah.
Playing Anna Maria, skilled pirate, former shipmate of Jack Sparrow. If you didn't even remember that was her in that, go back and watch that movie again. You're like, oh, because that was before she was big name.
It's the kind of thing where you look back on it and you watch it again and you're like, oh, it's her.
Right?
Because you know her better from other things.
Now we know her from Star Trek, the new spin-off, the new version of the movies. Far better in the sense of what they've done for that character than the original, the way, nothing against the actress from the original series, but they never gave her enough. Okay, she was always treated as a secondary. Now Uhura is a primary character, and Zoe Saldana has meat to work with in playing this role. She's also part of the Avatar franchise. She's part of the Guardians of the Galaxy series with her play on Gamora, which is solid, and a lot of makeup. A lot of work there. But so there's a whole bunch of movies there, not just the Guardians of the Galaxy, but also a couple of Avenger films that she shows up in. She was in the Atom Project opposite Ryan Reynolds. We
Mhm.
didn't mention this. Ryan Reynolds is somewhere else on these lists already. I didn't mention that one then, but it's actually a pretty decent movie.
I
And
enjoy it.
she
First
is
time I
the opposite
saw
of
Walker Scobell too.
okay. So again, lots of different things worthy of being on this list, and I'm like, let's go with 25. Let's go middle of the road. You good with middle of the road?
Yeah, I mean, it's one where it's like I see why this was hard for you to place.
24 kind of falls into the same category of I'm not
It's
sure
kind of
where
a
to put
theme
this
for
one.
this chunk of episode.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth. He is part of the Star Trek universe with a small role.
Just a little bit.
In the first movie of the restart, he's James T. Kirk's father. And if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. But he's there. It's a prominent little role, and then it's gone. Okay, but he's there.
Yeah.
Of course, he's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as he is Thor.
Correct.
And he has done a great job, even in some bad movies.
Mhm.
Because Thor has had some great movies,
And
like
some
the
bad
first
ones.
one and the last one. And then the two in the middle, not so good. But he's always good.
I don't know
Thor,
if you've got your order of which movies are correct there, but okay.
Thor the Dark World is not very good.
Correct.
Thor Ragnarok
Is the best Thor movie.
yeah, but Thor Love and Thunder was pretty darn entertaining.
I didn't see it. I did hear some
Oh.
people either loved it or hated it.
No, I was surprised at how much I
So
loved it,
there.
actually. It was
I
entertaining.
still sit here and go,
So
no,
there's
Ragnarok's
really only
clearly the
one bad
best.
one. Okay, really only one bad one. But of course, then he's in all the Avengers movies as Thor. So that's a lot. But then one of the most entertaining movies, I don't buy movies much anymore. Like I've bought barely any since streaming became a big deal. So like since 2005, 2006, I really haven't
Okay.
bought many movies, but I bought Cabin in the Woods from 2011.
Yeah, I know you bought this because you bought it and showed it to me. And
it's a good movie.
I don't love horror. I'm not a big horror guy. I enjoy Cabin in the Woods. I think it's a fantastic movie.
And he's got a great role as one of the ensemble cast there. He's done a bunch of other things. Okay. I don't want to go through all of them. Red Dawn is a reboot of a great movie where he's playing now I believe the role that Patrick Swayze played in the original.
Something
And he
like that, yeah.
delivered a great job, a great performance again there. Just a number of things where he keeps getting dropped in, and everything he does, he performs solidly. So Chris Hemsworth is an entertaining actor. He has some range, maybe not a huge range that we've seen yet. We just like Chris Hemsworth.
I think he has more range than he usually gets to show because I think
Right.
he's fallen into a little bit of a typecasting slot, and I'll be excited to see him break out of that one day.
Yeah, exactly. But in the meantime, we're thoroughly entertained, and he has, I mean, Thor alone would get him the slot of 24. He's just such a good Thor.
But now we're moving really more solidly into the upper half of this list. Who's next?
23 is Carl Urban. There's an actor. Man, been loving me some Carl Urban for a long time. In my research, I didn't even remember that he had roles in Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules The Legendary Journeys. But those are his first things, those TV series when we're getting into these genres. Where I remembered seeing him first was as Eomer in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yep.
One of the Rohan horse lords. He's great. He does play some prominent roles in the Chronicles of Riddick. We were talking about the Riddick movies with Vin Diesel before, and You're Not So Big. He plays a great bad guy in the Chronicles of Riddick. He plays a good guy in Doom, which is not a very good movie, people think. I love Doom. I think it's great. But he plays a good role there. It's based on the video game series, of course. But the Star Trek series. He's our new Dr. McCoy. and it's just fantastic. He's so entertaining in that role. And then you got a few other things. He pulls off a Judge Dredd in the movie
Fantastic.
Dredd that is so much better than what Sylvester
So
Stallone had
much.
done in the original. Again, he's just a solid actor. He's in the MCU, can't speak, in the
MC universe, yeah.
MCU universe, MCU, with Thor Ragnarok. He plays Scourge, that warrior who's serving Hela. And I'm like, Dr. McCoy, I've seen him from so many different franchises. Anytime he pops up now, I love seeing him. And then he goes and takes a leading role in The Boys.
Yeah.
Totally different acting from any of the others. So when we talk about Chris Hemsworth and we haven't seen a lot of range, we are seeing so much freaking range with Carl Urban.
Carl Urban has range, and he shows it within fantasy and sci-fi and horror. He shows it within the genres on this list.
Yeah.
To where, give him a role, I don't care what it is, I know he's going to do very well.
There could be an argument Carl Urban should be higher, but there's some really big actors to come here. So
I think there's room that in a few decades' time, maybe he'll have earned and end up in a much higher slot, but I'm okay with him where he is for now.
Number 22 is a big name who's at 22 because of the impact he's having on films and just bringing people to watch. And is he the best actor? No, he's one of these that just brings himself every time. We're talking Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Anything I've seen him in, I have totally enjoyed, even when he's bad. No, the first movie that I saw him in was The Mummy Returns. That's the trilogy that's really good,
done,
very entertaining.
CGI.
It was all CGI, and it was really bad CGI.
I mean, just looking at the lighting effects with it, it's poorly done.
And it was early CGI, But that spins off to him getting his own film, The Scorpion King, that never should have been made. That was a horrible movie. And he had nothing to work with. So it was not a good film. The next thing he shows up in is Doom. And I told you, I like Doom. Okay. And again, he does some acting, and then there's also CGI involved. Better CGI now, 4 years later. And then he's got a number of odds and ends, fantasy, science fiction. He gets a big name in the disaster film movie San Andreas, which I like. Now, that's not, that's like borderline. Where do you put disaster films? There's definitely some fantastical and science fiction elements in San Andreas. So I thought I'll mention it, but it's not solidly in these genres. The Jumanji series is.
Yeah.
And that's been a very successful reboot to Jumanji, the original with Robin Williams. Okay, now we've got these with him, and it's like, this is good. That's all fantasy. Did you ever see Rampage?
I did not.
Oh, that's so much fun. It's a sci-fi action film. And again, it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson doing his thing. But it's a movie with big animals and heart. I like Rampage. We get to see a little bit of acting, a different side of him in Skyscraper. More serious turn where he plays a guy who's like he's missing part of his leg. So he has a prosthesis. So you got Dwayne Johnson who has a prosthesis. It's not the same kind of guy, and he has to deliver acting in a different way with it, and he does a great job. That's an action movie with definite sci-fi elements, so it's okay to have here. He also is in the Fast and Furious franchise, added a breath of fresh air when he entered into it, so it was a good call to get him in there. And then he tried to be a superhero. Black Adam is a horrible movie. If they could take it back,
big flop.
But again, Dwayne Johnson, he's big.
At the end of the day, I like The Rock. I respect The Rock. The Rock is about 10 places too high on this list, possibly more.
Possibly. So comments, let us know. What do you think? Well, we have one more for today. The last one for today. Oh my goodness, so many movies. Bruce Willis. It's not the name you necessarily instantly think of when you're thinking of fantasy and science fiction movies, but then
he's got him.
You think of what he's been in. The Fifth Element, big time sci-fi. Armageddon, sci-fi adventure disaster movie. The Sixth Sense. We're getting into that psychological horror element. Unbreakable trilogy, where he's a key role in there. So many things he's done. We're kind of done with Bruce Willis now, unfortunately. He does have some form of degenerative brain issue. Basically, he's not going to be capable of performing anymore,
But
which is a loss.
we have a lot of good things, good entries, especially earlier in his career, that give him a valid spot within sci-fi, fantasy, and horror.
And we don't even have to mention the Die Hard movies. They're not really in this, but they're part of Bruce Willis. So that's where we end our list today. Again, use the comment box. Give us your thoughts on these. What did you think of the ones we have in the 20s? We know these are debatable. You heard us debate. So give us your thoughts too. If you got some favorite movies or TV show performances from any of these, we'd love to hear about those. And be sure to come back for the next 2 episodes as we keep moving up the list. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.